Welcome everyone, welcome to the 22nd of March, and as you can see from my attire, this is Homeless Tuesday. So what do we have to go over this Tuesday? And also I am from the past because right now is about Monday afternoon, basically. What we have to go over is something we haven't really touched on, which is the world first race and the progression of the top guilds. No, I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about the progression itself. I want to talk about something more important, which is what's happening about right now in NA and will happen tomorrow in EU, which is the third reset of mythic raiding and the unlocking of the second legendary. We have talked about the importance of the unlocking of the second legendary for normies, for plebs, for the casuals, not really for the top guilds and what could impact them, because there is something very important that might happen that I think it's worth mentioning. But before we go to that main dish of the day, let's look for a second how the situation is going up to this point. In the top 20 guilds at the moment, there might be some change in the next few hours before the video goes live, but more or less this is what we have in the top 20. I wanted to point out, yes, of course, the entire list is red. We know it already, it's Horde. What I wanted to point out is the fact that out of the top 20 guilds, 6 are from the US, 6 are from China, and 8 are from EU. So it's a quite balanced state actually for progression, even if actually we look at the top 12 guilds at the moment who have defeated Halondrus, right? The big first check in the raid. So even if we look at just the first guilds who defeated Halondrus, we actually have 3 guilds from the US, 4 from Europe, and 5 from China. So I thought it was interesting to point out because it's a very similar situation to what we had last year. Of course, this is just the start, right? We're still missing the full completed progression, so perhaps plenty of things are gonna change, are gonna swap around over time, but at the moment, compared to last year, the only difference, basically, is that we had 1 more guild from Europe and 1 less guild from NA. The rest was basically the same. So, interesting that the trend is continuing in the split, in the very even split between EU, NA, and China in the top 20 of guilds at the moment. Now, besides these numbers, I also wanted to point out about the difficulty of the raid, since players have started running up some numbers and have realized that very likely this tier is going to take the top guilds over 1,000 wipes to clear the raid. So unless the jailer is going to be a complete walkover, that's the amount of wipes it's going to take for the top guilds to clear the raid. So it's already a very long tier. It's been longer definitely than all of the last previous tiers in the last previous expansions. So it seems to have had this trend where Blizzard is sort of waiting for the first guild to start slamming their head against the wall until they realize the kill is impossible. So Blizzard nerfs the boss and then the boss dies. So far this has happened on Halondrus, it has happened on Anduin, it also happened on Rygolon yesterday. So all of these bosses at the time of the first guild getting to them, they were supposedly unkillable, and Blizzard had to nerf their HP basically to allow those guilds to reach the end of the boss. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially the jailer, because very likely guilds are going to have to progress on the jailer with 2 legendaries. Of course, we have a significant increase in power that comes into play. So almost certainly the jailer has to be balanced and tuned around having 2 legendaries, because otherwise it's going to be a walkover for these top guilds. If they suddenly increase by 10%, 15, 20% in power, and the boss is still tuned as if you only had 1 legendary, it's going to be very easy for them. And this is where I've seen some of the debates popping up, because since the dawn of time, players have debated about the supposed advantage from NA, because NA gets the weekly reset about 16 hours before EU. This means that the NA guild gets to open the Great Vault early, gets to re-clear the bosses earlier, so gets to re-enter the raid with a higher item level, so they can push further earlier than the EU guilds, which gives them the advantage. At the same time, we have also heard some possible complaints on the opposite side of the spectrum, the fact that EU guilds are advantaged because they can treat NA guilds as a lab rat, essentially, right? For example, Echo can go to sleep while Liquid wipes on Rygalon, and then Rygalon gets its max HP nerfed by 6%. So effectively Liquid has been wiping on a boss that by the time Echo starts raiding doesn't exist anymore. This happened on Alondrus when his HP was nerfed. This happened on Anduin when it was nerfed as well. So that could be an advantage. It could be considered an advantage for EU. The fact that they don't get to deal with unnerfed bosses for as long as the NA guilds do. However, now that we get into the third week of Mythic, we have a new debate coming up, which is the second legendary. Because even when we got the announcement of the raid unlocks and when we would have gotten our double legendary, plenty of World First raiders were joking, were being abrasive and commenting about how the main feature of the patch wasn't going even to be a thing for them. Why? Because they were obviously expecting to clear the raid between the first week or maybe the first 2 weeks. So, okay, we get a second legendary the third week of the raid, but we're already done by then. We won't even have time to toy with it. So it was quite clear that even the raiders themselves didn't even think that the second legendary would have come into play for World First progression, and it turns out it will be. As I said, unless the jailer literally dies in 15 pulls, it will have to be balanced around 2 legendaries, and that's what is going to make the difference. So this means that Liquid will get to have their hands on a second legendary and push on the jailer earlier. However, this is not what we have to talk about today, because this debate about whether or not having the second legendary early and whether or not this could be a mistake that ruins this very tight and compelling World First race comes in the background to the other problem I want to talk about, because this is something you as well should be familiar with, because you have seen multiple videos of me talking about it, sending out PSAs to the rest of the players about what happens when you get your double legendary, how can you get your second legendary to be crafted at 291 item level in whichever slot you want, etc, etc. So you should already be very familiar with this. What I want to point out is that at the moment, the majority of the players I was able to look into for these top guilds, Liquid, Echo, PCs, these players seem to have essentially ditched and mostly forgotten about the reputation, the Enlightened reputation, because the aforementioned supposed idea that the raid would have ended by the time we would have needed the reputation. Therefore, this means that today, basically for NA and tomorrow for EU, all of these World First players will get their second legendary at 265 item level, but they will not have the reputation needed to craft the legendary at 291 item level and put it in whichever slot they want. This is quite massive for a World First guild. It's actually a very good power-up increase even for normal guilds, for average guilds. Imagine for a World First guild. Imagine if you have one guild with 20 265 item level legendary belts and another guild with 20 291 legendary chests. The amount of item level and stats they can get from the 26 item level increase for every single player between the belt and the crafted Covenant legendary at 291. 26 item level increase for the entire raid, that is a 1.6, 1.5 overall item level increase. And at the moment, by the way, Liquid is at 269.5 average item level and Echo is at 269.8. So they are extremely close to each other. And this Covenant legendary increase could be significant, especially when you consider the previous benefits I pointed out that you can get from being able to craft legendary. Imagine if, for example, all of these guilds, of course, do have their 4-piece. So you are a player from Liquid, you have your 4-piece in your helmet, shoulder, pants, and gloves. This means your chest is not a tier piece. You have also been unlucky, so you only have a chest from Mythic Plus. You haven't even upgraded it, it's at 262 item level. And let's just add even more. The chest has the wrong stats. Perfect. You can take the rep you have gained, the Revered rep, craft the Covenant legendary at 291 with your best in slot stats and replace that shitty chest. That is the advantage you can get if you are able to craft the Covenant legendary. Which I think it's quite significant. It's quite interesting that something so casual, right? Something so baseline, like rep gain in the new zone that you would expect all of the top guilds to just do by day 3 because they are min-maxing everything. This is, again, something that instead is going to matter, right? Because in the Maw, the Stygia didn't matter for them because Castronatia was cleared very quickly. In Cortia, the socket upgrade also was irrelevant for them because Sanctum was cleared very quickly. So you go into Zeret Mortis, you think it's going to be the exact same, you don't care about rep because the raid is going to be over, so why should you bother about it? And it turns out it won't. It turns out it actually will be relevant. Luckily, I want to say luckily, the bosses have been nerfed often enough, Alonjus, Anduin, and Rygelon in particular, that both guilds, Echo and Liquid at the moment, should be getting only 2 progress on the Jailer by the time they have 2 legendaries. I know right now both guilds, at least from the past where I'm from, haven't killed the Rygelon. Both guilds are at like 4%, 3% wipes, so probably by tomorrow, by when you watch this video, they will have killed it. So by the time the double legendary comes into play, very likely only the Jailer is going to be the defining boss left. You know, imagine if after Alonjus, Anduin would have been a massive block as well, and you would have gotten this week, this weekly reset with your double legendary, with loads of dread and Rygelon and the Jailer all to do with double legendary, and certain players, many of these players, not having the rep needed to unlock this legendary. And the thing is, even if you min-max, even if you try to do it now, it's just too late for these players. Because with just a couple of days left, the amount of rep available in Zeret Mortis is limited. You can kill everything, even if you do kill every single rare every day, and you do the 3 world quests, that is not even 700 rep every day. So you have the weekly reset of 1250 rep, the quest, the weekly quest. You have the 500 world quest from the boss, which is 1750 rep total, and then about 700 rep per day if you spend time killing all the rares every day. So if you are right now, like many of these players are, at 3000 honored rep, 4000 honored rep, you know, it's going to take you a week to even get to Revered. It's going to take you quite a while. So that's the kind of the issue for these top players in these top guilds, that it's likely not even going to be worth anymore to spend that much time trying to catch up in the possibility that the Jailer is going to last 1 extra reset, and you might have the benefit of crafting the legendary at 291 item level. I think by now they just have to say fuck, we didn't do this. I guess we are stuck with this 265 legendary belt. So this was the point for today. The point is, we have checked the raid progression with the specs and classes. We have also talked about when the double legendary is going to unlock, which of the specs look more exciting when they have their hands on 2 legendaries. But for today, we looked at this from a world first perspective. What could change with the arrival of the double legendary if we consider that very likely many of these players currently haven't bothered to grind the rep of the Enlightened, so that when the reset arrives, they won't have the rep needed to craft that Covenant legendary at 291 item level. Whether or not this is going to be a significant difference, a key change in the progress of these guilds, in being able to make the DPS checks and the HPS checks, which are much more important in world first progress than for normal guilds, for average guilds. They're not going to be as problematic as you get to these bosses much later on. So I wonder if it's going to play a role. I mean, I'm pretty certain it's going to play a role. I just wonder how big of a role this difference of the second legendary, how it might change things. Of course, actually, all of this talk could be completely nullified by Liquid being from NA, getting their reset early, getting their second legendary early, extending the raid, and then bomb rushing the Jailer with 2 legendaries before Echo even wakes up. So if that were to happen, then this entire talk about the differences in item level of the crafted legendary would be useless, right? So I guess we even have to wait for that before this possible argument comes into play. So for now, all there is left in this cold day is to wait a few more days and see the progression of these guilds. In the meantime, we'll continue to monitor the situation, the progression of more importantly for the specs, and how they have been performing in both the raid and mythic plus. So We will take a look at this in the upcoming week. In the meantime, however, we can stop here for this Tuesday. Have a good luck in your Great Vault, as I hope I will too. I'm starting to get a little bit triggered at the Great Vault. If I don't get anything this week as well, it would be 3 full resets without being offered a single tier piece, which would annoy me, I would say, to the high level. That would be my correct feeling if that were to happen, so I hope it doesn't. Thank you guys, of course, for watching the video, helping me and this channel grow. You can do even more by liking and commenting down below on this video, as well as subscribing to the channel. You can, however, only subscribe to the channel for today if you have gotten 3 options from your raid Great Vault, 3 heroic options minimum from your Great Vault, since this is a raid-centric video for today. Of course, you can also follow me on Twitter over here. I have heard a couple of people actually say they saw one of my tweets. I'm not too sure. And then you can also support me on Patreon over here. If you really have nothing else to do for today, doing so will also give you access to my Discord server and a few other benefits, which are not that great, honestly. See you guys soon. And in the meantime, I do hope this world first race is not ruined. I thought it was pretty cool how tight it's been, so I wish it's not gonna get ruined by this whole double legendary possible fiasco coming up soon.